Good morning. Welcome to our Bible discussion with the Cincottis, Arthur and Suzanna Cincotti. This is the MT for Christ 24/7 podcast. Welcome.
Welcome. Christ is risen.
And Christ is risen indeed,
yes,
as they say on Easter.
This is, Easter
or Resurrection Sunday.
I wrote somebody an email this week that said, "Happy Ishtar." This was the pagan goddess.
Yeah, if you Google why is it Easter, you'll see that it was this monk who said it was because of some Eoster goddess of the spring that they called it that. And I'm like, why did we do that?
We're not going to touch that.
Yeah, I'm not touching that.
That is a rabbit trail that we're not going
down that today.
Rabbit trail? Really?
Right.
Yeah, that's our
bunny,
middle name.
Not a bunny trail, but
an Easter bunny
trail that we're not going down. But just lately on that, though, I will say that earlier this week, because I was always triggered by the springtime symbolism that's always thrown up. But
I saw your posting. I thought that was beautiful.
Right, and I've come to to realize you can't take away the glory of God because His glory is in creation. For the springtime fauna, the new generation of life, and of course the resurrection of Jesus. So,
Amen.
That's all I'll say. So we can make peace with the Easter Bunny and
make peace with
and pray for those who only And that's just it. Like this holiday like sort of loses steam when the kids grow up sometimes, and like my parents aren't really celebrating today, but they gave us a bunny and Peeps.
Yeah.
But there's no dinner, or and I think it's the level of your maturity, and your faith has a lot to do with whether your enthusiasm for today. If it's all tied up in Easter egg hunts and stuff like that, there's I think you want to press deeper into the core of the Christianity, behind today's holiday, the holy day that it is.
Two days things behind that. First of all, I totally agree with you. And if we're just invested in the sentimental aspects, of course, that's going to dissipate with the changing times. But I think on a broader level, and this is another Easter Bunny trail that has nothing to do with our topic today.
Right.
But
sorry,
I genuinely, and I've talked about this before in these studies. I may have done a more in-depth study of it, but I think in our culture, we have lost the capacity to really celebrate and to know what constitutes a celebration, even to the same extent that, having sex now is translated into making love, or vice versa. Partying is now translated into getting drunk and throwing up on the toilet at 4:00 in the morning.
Or from the toilet into a bathtub, as I was told.
Projectile.
One of my brothers did, I think on Thanksgiving Eve last year.
Oh, yeah, but we've really lost the capacity, the elements to celebrate, and one of the reasons why. To quote and invoke Elmo is because if it's Christmas every day, it's not Christmas anymore.
Right.
And we live in such an affluent, such a on-demand culture. Growing up in the 60s, I think we all have had a taste of this in some capacity. So. In the summertime, we had one place to go for ice cream, and it was about 3 or 4 miles away. It was a drive. It was a family affair. It's called Buttricks. I still remember the name Buttricks. It's not there anymore. There's a housing development on that place now, and you drove out in the convertible with the family, went up to the little window with the funny screen in front of it, gave your order, got your ice cream, and sat on the fenders and had an ice cream. And you only did that maybe 4 or 5 times in the summer. It wasn't even like a every Saturday night kind of tradition. So it was so rare that it was special.
Right.
And of course, they were closed through the winter. And so there was that anticipation and looking forward to it. And I could say that about a lot of things that were just so rare that there was now you go to Stewart's and they have 50 some odd varieties 24/7.
Right.
So,
I was going to say everyone's working for the weekend, and so we have a holiday around every 7 days. It's called Friday night, Saturday night, and the sporting events that happen periodically. That there's always got to be a festival. There's got to be something to celebrate, something to get drunk in front of.
Yeah,
and
again,
the franchising of America is taken away. The specialness, the individuality, the small mom and pop sort of places that families could build a tradition around, and we have more access, and things are less special or less unique, and
that's it. That's
and
the
we
problem.
can't, like you said, that problem of celebration where you can't just have a sense of peace. That's gone. You have to build it up with something.
Indeed.
I think that's true for the resurrection too. I think that people just kind of like, there's crosses everywhere. There's all this kind of paraphernalia, like you said, the franchising or the commercializing of all our holidays, to make a buck and to build it up and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Really hides the true meaning, and I think that in your study here, honey, you touch on the true meaning of what today is.
The true meaning is woven into what is truth, and I don't mean to quote Pilate here because of all people to quote, but strongly believe that this is a question for our age. What is truth?
And the spirit that he asked it was really, reflected in today's society. What is truth?
Sure.
It's sort of, you sort of get the implication that he was sort of frustrated with the idea. Because everyone had their own brand.
He didn't wait for an answer. Right?
It was,
Not
he
that
didn't.
We're given. Not that we're given. So we take it as a kind of flippant remark, right? When Pilate says, "What
like
is
who
truth?"
can know?
Right.
Who could know what truth is? Everyone has this. The Greeks, the Romans, the Jews, all these people, in his society have their brand of truth and their idols and everything else. What is truth amongst all of this?
Well, that was woven into Greek philosophy and the Epicureans, kind of trafficking in wisdom, or trafficking in notions of truth, or is truth knowable, or can you step in the same river twice, or things that are just so deep and lofty. You have to put your miner's cap on, so to speak, and really have no sustaining value in life other than you have the joy of sitting on a rock and contemplating the universe.
It just speaks of the hopelessness. Like, you can't
Right.
find truth, so
Very fatalistic.
choose what you want and get out of my way, and we'll just agree to disagree.
You saying that, Mark, makes me think last night was our first time back into the prison ministry.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We're so excited about being able to go back into
Beautiful.
our local jail, and Arthur had 3 gentlemen with him there, and I had 2 ladies, and my whole lesson was on hope, because people lose hope, and they lose a sense of hope, but then the question is, where do you find true hope?
Yeah.
Which I think is where Pilate was looking. Where is real truth?
Mm.
Because they're calling you this and they're calling you that, and you're saying this and they're saying that. What is the real truth? And Jesus already said, I am the truth.
Right.
So
Because we can hope for a lot of things, but ultimately,
we have to look back
you
to
have
the
to
Christ.
look to the Christ, for the truth that transcends this life, this hope that transcends this life.
Sure.
Well, it's a small
And
observation.
the prison ministry is certainly a place where they need truth.
Indeed.
Because they've listened to the world's lies.
Right.
To grab what you need and take what you want and to do what you want, to exceptions of common decency and the law. And they've had their version of the American dream shattered by incarceration, and they'll, unless they have the hope of Christ, they'll find themselves in the same cycles and in the same places again.
Yes,
So
indeed.
it's good to give them the truth.
So our job is to give them truth.
Yeah.
As we were studying in weeks past, there's a little bit of confusion even within the camp about what is true, anyway, what is genuinely accurate within the Orthodox Christian doctrine. But the issue is, I think, in this generation, maybe more than any other, or at the very least equal with any extreme humanistic culture, like whether it's the Enlightenment or the Renaissance or the the Greek philosophers that we just mentioned prior to. We live in a truth crisis. We live in a truth crisis right now. And Suzanna and I were discussing on the way back from the prison last night about, and we grabbed some dinner together just after that. We're talking about how the overwhelming amount of information that's come from the information highway, I think has caused, it will certainly cause myself and it caused many people to just disconnect. To say, this is just, I'm on information overload, and the truth of the matter is I just don't care anymore. I don't care. Unless it really genuinely has immediate pertinence to me and my situation, I'm done. I don't need the 24/7 news from whatever perspective.
Right.
Every
flavor and viewpoint that you want. And I have to agree. I mean, I have to say that my attitude is somewhat like that.
Yeah.
That I'm not plugging into,
right.
Hear all of what's going on in the world because of that.
Yeah. Danger in that is that it would become a society that's uninformed and very naive, and then when somebody takes over with big guns and things of that sort, we walk around saying, "What happened? I never saw this coming. I never knew that things were this bad." Well, of course you never knew. You never listened to the news.
Right.
You checked out.
It's
It's
difficult.
a point of balance, which is my favorite word.
I know you're right. You're absolutely right.
Balance. So,
absolutely.
And meet through truth. And truth is one of those funny words that has a word definition. My goodness.
Yeah, it is.
Some crazy stuff here.
A while back, we did a study on meaning, and in a similar fashion, truth is one of those words that has truth in the definition, which is completely unhelpful. It really is. So for instance, just the definition off the internet was the quality or state of being true. Really?
Right. What's true?
How is that helpful?
What is truth? Which is true. That's great. Thanks. Let's go back around again.
Yeah. Also, that which is true in accordance with fact or reality. That's a little bit more. That buttresses the definition. Right? And a fact or belief that is accepted as true. Okay, thanks, but that's just keeps folding back on, well, what is truth? What is true?
Yeah, one of the earlier classes in our Bible college, here at the church, addressed the question of truth, and one of the scenarios was like if a reigning society came in and took over an old society and changed and eliminated all symbols and all points of their history, and rewrote the history. Would that new history be truth? And some of the students were like, yeah, because they determine what's true. But in reality, it's not, because it's a fabrication. It covers over.
Right.
But it just showed that some of us had to learn that truth couldn't be manipulated and changed.
Right.
What's true is true. And one of the principles that came out of that, of course, is all truth is God's truth. And because you could change, because the reigning society could go in and quote unquote change the facts of history, and they were like, oh, but the quote unquote facts weren't based on what truly happened.
Right.
And even though in a history book they would list these new facts, as fact and
Sure.
be presented as fact.
Yeah.
In reality, God would know the truth if no one else did.
Yeah.
And they sort of show the depth of the question.
You know that you bring that up as a history teacher. My 37 years of teaching now. I've had a time when I was in the high school teaching history and that kind of thing. But Arthur and I watched a show the other day about finding a tomb, in Egypt, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a mystery. What was the truth about this guy? What was it?
Oh,
was
yeah,
all
yeah,
about
yeah.
this guy?
Right.
And all these hieroglyphics talking about this wonderful life and how great he was and his true love and his children and all this kind of. Well, as they start peeling back the thing, this guy had taken over this tomb.
Mm-hmm.
It was during a time when there was a plague of some sort, and his wife and his children died young,
Mm-hmm.
and he was crippled and died, a horrible death.
Mm-hmm.
But yet he wanted the truth about his life to look beautiful.
Right.
When in truth, his life was
a mess, right? But yeah, who wants to tell that story? We want to say that we were prosperous and mighty and everything else.
Well, you lit on the key fact, that element that you didn't read ahead last night, did you?
No, I did not.
All right,
I did
so
run it through I did run it through spell checker as I posted on the blog just to make sure there was nothing.
Well,
so,
thank you.
I didn't read it.
We light on a key element. We're going to get into a little bit about postmodernism, but the hallmark of postmodernism is the narrative. The narrative, and you both hit on the subject in the sense that this Egyptian who was excavated by archaeologists was trying to write a narrative for himself. Whether or not it was true, it was questionable.
The obituary, right?
Exactly.
Almost
how I'll be remembered.
Well, almost equally as kind of. I think we mutually got the impression that it was kind of. I'll just say not right. Is that the program, which was on Netflix, was trying to stir up something, I think, of a deeper narrative or a more interesting narrative than maybe really existed. And of course, we know that that's for ratings, right? I mean, the news is a big culprit of that, trying to create a narrative where there really isn't much of a narrative. Two people were just crossing the street and blah blah blah. But newscasters use hyperbole and intense language, and everybody's really excited about the situation.
Music and
it's a false narrative, and we live in the midst of a false narrative. The Strong's for Hebrew word is emeth, and it uses some synonyms like certainty, assured, right, sure, and verity, and those are some powerful words to start to really narrow the lens on what truth is. We're genuinely trying to get to the bottom. I will interject at this point. I used to tell a story or give a narrative, a fictional narrative, kind of like a parable, and I like to engage young people with this as a question mark, because steeped in postmodernism and the narrative and the more appealing narrative. So I would ask I would set the scenario or the backdrop like this. Consider a family of 3 siblings in their mid to late teens or so, a mother and father. Working class, middle class, if that is even, if we can even get a beat on what that is anymore. But maybe a 2-income family where they enjoy some of the niceties. They own a home but have a mortgage. Both parents work. The kids, they go away same place every year for a week or a 2-week vacation. That's an annual event. The oldest kids, the two, have cell phones. The girl's into cheerleading and dance, and the boy is into sports, and the little one, the guy, is looking forward to getting a cell phone, and he's into his thing. And it's just this your typical, what we call in musical terms, a B-flat sort of family.
Okay.
Could be one of a million families, just trudging along, going along through life. And so all of a sudden, somewhere in the adventure or in the ride, come to find out that Dad has been having an extramarital affair, committing adultery. I hate to call it an affair. And has been for the past 2 years. And now it's just come out and to be known. And so all hell, so to speak, is broken loose in the family. Now Mom and Dad are separated. Dad's got a separate living arrangement. The kids are back and forth on weekends and holidays. Money is very tight now. The vacation is off the table. And the cell phones, you got to get a job and pay for them yourselves now. And all kinds of turmoil, and everybody's angry. And all kinds of turmoil has broken out in the family. The question that I would pose is, was the family better off before they knew the truth? I mean, this situation was going on for 2 years, and everybody was happy. They were having their 2-week vacation. They were doing their thing.
Right.
They were engaged, and there was an oblivion to the undercurrents.
Yeah.
But was the family better off before the truth came to be known? And I get different responses on
It's
that.
very, and it really depends on your point of view of pragmatism.
Yeah.
Because, it's where does it end, I guess? Because a lot of people would say, and some people would say, no, it's not. They're much better off before knowing. In fact, they'll put it on they'll make the case that you don't want to jeopardize all that you have in terms of the home, the vacation, the cell phones, all that stuff. You don't want to jeopardize it by making his sin something that is a deal breaker, and they'll put that you'll just have to forgive or allow him to continue in that in that thing. Now that you know, why do you have to make the kids know it? All that.
Well,
they'll put it on the
strangely
spouse to forgive and allow it to continue.
Strangely enough, even in this culture, the predominant response is a pretty immediate, quick, no, they weren't better off. The truth, it was right
great.
to know the truth. Yeah. And
I'm glad to hear that because, like I said, they might want to,
it doesn't really
maintain
gel.
the lifestyle more than
It's very countercultural.
It does, and it doesn't really gel with the post-narrative backdrop, which is, write your own narrative, and most certainly write a narrative that's appealing to you.
Right.
It doesn't truth. Let's take truth off the table. It doesn't matter. We just want something that's appealing and nice and fun and pretty pictures.
Right. And that's great. I'm glad to hear that the opinions turned out to be the majority was that it's better to know the truth than not know the truth, and I would agree. Yeah. But that compromising spirit I just think is out there too. And like I said, all in the matter of pragmatism and does it change if the spouse doesn't have a job and she depends on him to
Indeed.
to live? She doesn't have skills to go out and or whatever. Yeah. And that's the compromise that sin creates.
Yes. Yes.
And it's multifaceted. We could layer this with so many subtly different scenarios. I was certainly painting with a broad brush, but I think one of the problems is in a fallen universe, it seems only logical that truth would be uncertain, variable, subjective, and only partially known at all. Truth is a kaleidoscope of influences and aspects and perspectives. How many times there have been programs, documentaries and things of that about different people who see a crime scene differently. There was There was a show, I think it was called Mind Games or something about the mind, and they'd actually
Criminal Mind.
stage a small street crime, and then interview the crowd, so to
yes.
speak.
Oh,
Remember
okay.
we saw a program like
It was
that?
called Mind Games.
Yeah.
Criminal Minds or something else.
They interview the crowd, and they get so many different versions and variations, and trying to piece together the truth again, or what really happened, was picking and choosing out of looking for consistency. That I think maybe we're onto something here, right? Looking for consistency in the multiple narratives, where we say if there's agreement on this, this, and this, then by two or more people, boy, where do they get that stuff out of the Bible? Then that must be a true statement.
Well, I think that jumps down to where you said if red is only red because it socially constructs consensus, then we can begin to ask what's the bedrock truth. And that is so true because everybody, well, is that red, or is this red, or is that red, or no, that's a shade of red. No, that's a hue of red. No, that's a,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh no, that's not red at all. That's purple.
And that's all based on the people's experiences and their perceptions and their physical, mental, and everything to go with it.
Yeah. Well,
and your vocabulary. Like I call everything that's a shade of red.
Sure.
I don't know, fuchsia, rose, or pink, or whatever.
Well, that's
other
decorated,
right, or maroon, or whatever.
Let's not even go there right now.
Or yeah.
No, the best one I love is the green and blue scenario, because we've gotten involved in this, and some things you'll say, oh, that's blue. No, it's not. It's green. No, what are you talking about? It's blue. No, it's green, and we'll bounce back and forth on that. So there are these gray areas, but I didn't want to get there just yet.
Yeah.
But we'll come back to it. Let's just camp on postmodernism for a second, which is asserts all of the above, subjectivity, variable, uncertainty. It asserts all these things. In Western philosophy, a late 20th century movement characterized by broad skepticism, subjectivism, relativism, and a general suspicion of reason, that acute sensitivity to the role of ideology in asserting and maintaining political power and political and economic power. So essentially saying that truth is just a social construct by whoever is in charge. And again, what you started out with, the guys with the bigger guns swoop in and rewrite the narrative, to suit them, so that we don't want any of this freedom stuff. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, I'm calling into the church early.
We don't want any of this, freedom or liberation stuff infiltrating your ideology, your notion of reality, so to speak.
In that crime scene scenario that you presented, it really depends on who you ask and then the witnesses. I didn't see nothing as a possible response, because I don't trust the police. I'm not getting involved, on and on and on. And that talk about relativism and subjectivism and skepticism. You're not going to really do the right thing, so I'm not going to testify to anything. We can't really punish anybody. In terms of that, I mean, at the time of the Unabomber, when they didn't know who the Unabomber was and what was going on with that, I remember in my office, one of the representatives I worked with at the time said that if he knew, like, if for instance the Unabomber turned out to be his brother, and this is something he offered up, it wasn't something I drew out of him.
Yeah.
He said, if I knew the Unabomber was my brother, I would not turn him into the police.
Wow. And
it showed a difference in our ideas of justice, our idea of trusting, the legal system and everything else. That family trumped the state or anyone else's personal safety.
All right, let me stand on the shoulders of that for a moment. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, it's no secret, and we've talked about this in this study many times, but So just the overwhelming wave of the rightness or the righteousness of homosexuality in our culture now, and largely it's based on the narrative that, well, I know somebody, or my cousin, or my brother, so and so or so is homosexual, and they're just the nicest person you'd ever want to meet. So there's a massive subjectivity there.
Right.
How much?
What else do
we apply that to?
I love the person
the
so
Unabomber?
much.
Yeah.
Right. I love the person so much that I can't condemn the behavior they're doing.
Yeah.
And to do one or the to do one is to do the other.
And I take that and I overlay it to the culture at large.
Right.
My brother is nice. My brother is homosexual. Therefore, all homosexuals in the culture are nice. I can't condemn any because I can't condemn.
Chastised for their behavior.
Yeah, and this is
Yeah,
very problematic
how far are you
scenario.
going to take that out?
I know.
How far are you going to take that out?
Well, he's got
My
a guy
brother
with the
is a
Unabomber.
pedophile.
Yes.
Yes, Mark went all the way to bombing up,
Who knew? Yeah,
Right.
and that's
But I
like
mean,
I said,
just
not
the
a
middle
scenario.
ground,
That was a
just
conversation.
how far are you going to take that? Well, my brother murdered somebody.
Right.
Apparently, you can take it pretty far, depending.
And there's a whole sense of where is it going to stop?
And like I said, that the witnesses, maybe they feel the same way about everyone who commits a crime because their brother is a serial killer. So
Sure.
it's a dog eat dog world. You have to watch out for yourself. And
This is a very tedious
It's like wow.
and dangerous scenario for society and a culture at large, where there are just no moorings. There are no moorings, and I think somebody I think it was somebody on Breakpoint talking about the notion of freedom, where the cultural notion of freedom is like an astronaut in space, floating just without nothing inhibiting them. But an astronaut floating in space can't accomplish anything unless they're tethered to a line,
Right.
or something stable where that they can grab onto. All they can do is float, and in a pure sense of the word, yes, they're free, but free to do what?
Right. Exactly. It's all in a context of society.
Yeah.
And where we are.
Yeah.
In my Buddhist days, I always thought of freedom as being alone in a field.
Yeah.
That's not as close to floating in space as an
just
astronaut.
right,
Nothing.
exactly,
You're
just
being
out in
nothing.
wilderness and but then the ideas of
That gets
wait,
tired
I sort
pretty
of
fast.
would need a shelter and I would need food or and then I'd have to get seed or what so you can't live isolated in freedom without depending on other people and other
Exactly.
resources for long. Even in my wilderness, days, I guess. That you had this notion of that would be simplicity. That would be
Well, I think it was interesting.
but it's not
Our
possible.
Good Friday service was so wonderful.
Yeah.
Friday night. But one of the things that I thought was brought out was by Larry Walker was the idea of family. Of being a part of a body, being a part of a group,
Sure.
having something that you can give to another person.
Mm-hmm.
Now, mind you, we can talk about my brother was a pedophile and I love him and I'm not going to turn him in, but that's not the same thing as what we're talking about being part of the body and being loving and caring for each other and that kind of thing. And we do want to love the person and hate the sin.
Right.
But we don't want to condone or allow the sin to continue, and
Right.
so we have to keep going. We have to keep going and finding what is the
Right.
truth that God wants us to know about family and right and wrong.
In my recovery ministry, I always used to say, God wants you to come to Him, but He doesn't necessarily want you to stay where He found you.
Right, exactly.
He wants to, and that goes all the way back to Genesis when He said to Cain, will you not, why are you downfallen or whatever, won't you, your countenance will be risen up if you do the right thing, basically.
do the right thing. Right.
And that's what He wanted.
Well, the truth behind the little family scenario, my little narrative that I presented earlier, was and is the simple fact that the arrangement with the father is not sustainable
Right.
forever.
Right.
You know, time.
Although some would say
time
you could.
ratchets on, and even though it may have seemed better for 2 years not to have known, we had 2 happy years. But what how does
what's
this
the Italian term for that hidden wife thing?
Gumata?
There you go. So I'm just saying, brother, there's some cultural stuff out there that would say that's just the way guys are.
What happens when another baby is introduced into the family dynamic, and what happens when another person? Now we're into communal living. Now we're into all kinds of things that haven't worked in the past.
Right.
Okay, and will so. Again, this is happening in real time, everybody. It's not on the paper. But so now two towns in Massachusetts, Cambridge and Somerville, have passed or revised polygamy laws.
Oh boy.
To taking them off the books, so that a marriage now in at least 2 towns in Massachusetts, and this will sweep throughout the nation soon enough, because again, since nothing is static, then the GTLB XYZ movement and community is not going to be satisfied with whatever they get on Tuesday, April whatever, because there's always sin always demands more.
Right,
It
the
always
what is it? The
never
polyamorous?
polyamorism. That's the word.
So
I
that'll
was
be the
looking
next
for.
thing.
Yeah, that's going to be the next thing on the menu.
Well, why do I have to be limited to one partner?
Yeah, I mean, if it's same sex,
it's all love.
then
Let's love one another.
Why should
together? And they'll take the Bible and say this guy had 2 wives and all that.
Sure, absolutely.
So sure, they'll oh my. Yeah.
So now we have in the context of sexual immorality, we have a kind of mandate that we're down to these last 2 requirements. So long as it's consensual, and so long as it's two adults.
Right.
But the question mark as we watch the slippery slope, and of course everybody says, this will never happen. This will never happen. Well, 20 years ago we were saying this would never happen.
That's all happened.
So the question mark becomes, when does consent come off the table? Like in Sodom, there were all the men standing outside Lot's house demanding to send out the 2 angels.
Right.
So when does consent come off the table, and when does age come off the table? And we already know that there are groups and forces and people already thinking that the man-boy love association, that age is not an issue for sexual intimacy.
And to bring it back to the page, that ties in with your next point from Mike Sermovich, Witch or whatever. It says. I read postmodernist theory in college. If everything is a narrative, then we need alternatives to the dominant narrative.
Yeah.
And Christian Judeo morality from the
narrative.
Bible is one narrative.
That
was the dominant narrative, and now we're developing all these alternate narratives.
Yeah.
Because somehow we're accommodating the minority further and further, especially when it comes to the minority opinion in terms of morality, in the name of freedom.
Yeah, and it's
because apparently our morals were oppressing people from being who they wanted to be, and like I said, it's
how far out can you take?
It's going
how far
further
out do you want
and
to take
further
that?
out.
So this is stirred in me some interesting thought. I hope this doesn't become too convoluted. I really didn't intend on going down this direction last night, but it's just sort of ended up here somehow. But so how about we said on the other page, it says is red,
right?
And what constitutes that as a social construct? Well, is dead?
Dead.
Now we're getting to something more. Who cares if red is red? But dead is dead has real consequences. And it would seem that Jesus seems like a postmodernist, because he discounts the notion that that of death, that dead is dead, so to speak. In Mark 12:27, he says that God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. And he's talking about the God of Isaac, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And these, according to one narrative, these guys are dead.
Oh, they're definitely dead.
They're dead,
Right.
right? They're pretty dead. We know where their tombs are,
But
right?
in the
Dead.
Transfiguration, how did the guys know that that Elijah and Moses were standing with Jesus? Because they were alive. Because
They
they
were
there.
alive.
Right,
They're living.
right. So this is a
It's
completely
a deeper truth.
contrary.
Right.
This is a different narrative.
Absolutely.
Jesus is introducing some stuff. How about Elijah prayed, for his servant Gehazi in 2 Kings 6:17. He says, "Oh Lord, open his eyes that he may see that greater are the ones that are for us than the ones that are against us."
there's
And he sees the
greater
army
reality
of the
than-
heavenly hosts, a different reality, a reality within or surrounding
beyond.
what we call reality. How about the heavenly hosts at Christmas, right? Praising God and singing. And a bunch of shepherds say, like,
to the real.
"What's
real
going
world.
on? This doesn't happen every day."
No, right. The invisible became visible.
Yes,
And,
yeah.
They poured their glory into the world,
Right.
to announce the coming of the newborn King.
But in truth, the spiritual is just as real as what we're dealing with.
Right. Right.
And some would say
Very
more
real.
so.
More so because
I mean,
that's ultimate reality.
that's
would
an ultimate
include
reality.
all
Yeah.
Rather
of
than calling
it.
it an alternate reality, it really is the ultimate
Reality
Yeah.
of all that is seen and unseen. That's ultimate reality.
So there does seem to be an alternate reality or narrative out there that is more compelling than the
ones we're
one
living, yeah.
most people are living. And tragically, like sheep without a shepherd, most people are kind of conformed to the reality of the terra firma, the day-to-day narrative.
Well, you've heard the flippant phrase, "This is my world, you're just living in it."
I haven't, but I like that.
Oh, it's your world, we're just living in it. And sometimes we put it on the other person because they're so full of themselves.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm the center of.
All right, well, it's your
definitely
world,
the-
Arthur. We're just living in it.
Definitely the center of my universe.
Oh, my.
So how do we access this this other reality, this other world, this deeper truth, this more sustainable truth, this more as the Strongs gave us, certain or assured or right or sure truth? How do we how do we lay hold of this? And the Bible would tell us by faith. And the world would tell us, well, that's just a cop-out.
Right.
You guys, you Christians, you religious folk, just ascribe everything to faith. Whenever you don't have an answer for something, it's faith.
Right.
How did the world begin? Was it the Big Bang? Did aliens come from? No, it's by faith. Oh, thanks. That's helpful. That's not helpful.
Well, that's
at
just
all.
it, and that's the dichotomy we throw up: is the
Right.
seen and the unseen. So,
Yep.
and there's materialists who will deny anything spiritual at all. Afterlife or whatever. There's no heaven. There's nothing. This is it. This is your life. This is it. You go in a box, and that's the end.
Yep.
Because it's unseen. They can't. They discount anything spiritual at all.
Right.
And by faith, we have to know it. And the thing is, we can discern it, but those truths are spiritually discerned.
They are.
And if talk about the Good Friday, the cross and the resurrection is foolishness to who? To those who are perishing.
Indeed.
Right,
Yeah.
To those who are
Yes.
spiritually blinded
Yeah.
by the enemy, by their own choice, and because the enemy will say, "Did God say?" And he'll say, "You know what? I don't think God did." So there, I agree with you, enemy. And suddenly we're not just deceived. We're running with that with that narrative that the enemy gives us, that there is no God, that and that there's no difference between anyone in terms of faith or belief, that we all go to the same place. And I hear this sometimes, the sentiments I hear within the church.
Sure, I know.
Take a bit of scripture and run with it.
in a bad, unhealthy direction sometimes.
Dangerous.
Well, not everyone is going to be saved, and often, I was thinking about this morning. Is the jailer? They said, "Oh, your entire family will be saved."
Mm-hmm.
That specific guy's family will be saved. While we're believing for people to come to Christ,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a misuse of Scripture to say that to extend that to everybody. Because if it's like everybody in my family is going to be saved, well, let's go the scientific route, and everyone's each other's 32nd cousin. Well, guess what? There's universalism. Everybody in my family saved. That means my 32nd cousin, which is we're all related.
Yeah.
As the body of human beings, suddenly everyone's saved.
Doesn't really seem to be playing out that way.
No, it certainly isn't, and that's just
No.
it. If we're going to throw that out there, we're denying the reality that God chooses some.
Yeah.
Through His grace, and if we're believing for healing for everyone, we're denying the fact of suffering,
Right.
and and if we're believing financial freedom for everyone, we're just denying reality,
Right.
and
I will say,
pushing that prosperity gospel.
yeah.
and
I will say,
God is a provider, but I think He provides our needs.
the first church that Suzanna and I went to when we were dating in Manhattan was, I don't remember the name of the church, but it was Norman Vincent Peale,
Right.
the church that he founded. It was on like Fifth Avenue down in the teens somewhere.
Yeah.
And Norman Vincent Peale wrote The Power of Positive Thinking.
Right.
I think there's, I think I'd rather,
But
if I have to speak, I'd rather choose the positive scenario.
That's it, right.
I'd rather speak that
And that's
over
it. And I don't want
into.
to poo-poo anyone's
Yeah.
faith, because it takes faith to believe, and
Right.
guess what? Your faith will be rewarded too.
I agree,
So
Right.
it's.
But
I
all
fear
but
self-deception.
I don't want to be Pollyanna-ish
Right.
either.
Right. And
Right.
of all the people in the Bible, was it not Paul who said, "I prayed for the thorn to be taken away from me," and God said, "No."
No.
Oh,
Right.
please, yeah,
My
but
grace is sufficient for,
For
you.
you.
Who's
so
the white-
people are always going to be, saying, "Well, I prayed to get healed. I've prayed to get healed from Parkinson's, but I haven't. But
Right.
that's because there's a purpose in it.
Right.
So
Right.
I live the purpose."
And the purpose is our sanctification, and our
Indeed.
we're gonna rely on God, because
Right, because
the healing might not come, but
Right.
He will stay.
Yeah.
He will stay.
Yeah.
He will
be
The
there.
denial of suffering, which is a
Right.
very powerful component in God's kingdom dynamic, I think is equally as unhealthy and dangerous in the church.
Right.
Complete denial.
Right.
Now, actually, we're slipping into Buddhism to say, well, this is not real. Even though
Right,
it seems
you're not
real,
really suffering.
It's not. I'm not
Yeah,
really suffering, even
'cause-
though my arm is
Because
falling
we're not
off.
even real as a person.
Right,
So
we're not.
thus,
So God uses suffering.
to say, this is your life, kid.
Yeah, well,
Here it is.
He uses it in powerful ways, and here we are at Easter. Of course, we're celebrating the resurrection this morning, but a few days ago we were looking at the suffering of Jesus, and the
What are you going to do with that? The God who
yeah.
puts His Son on a cross.
I know, yeah,
These are the hard truths of Christianity.
Yes.
And we're gonna. What do you do with that?
Right.
I'm gonna follow.
And I
Indeed.
think it
Indeed.
goes
Because
right
it was
into-
for a purpose. His
Right,
suffering
his
was for a
is
purpose.
Right.
And I think it goes right into Arthur's next point here that says Jesus is truth in the same manner in which God is love. And you say, how could God have put His Son on a cross? Because He loved us enough to sacrifice what was so very precious to Him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Jesus is truth because not only did He tell the truth, but He is truth.
He is
Right,
truth.
yeah.
Exactly.
right. It's a different dynamic, subtly
Different
dynamic.
subtly different dynamic, and in contrast, Jesus does point out that Satan is a liar.
Yeah.
And
Father
of
was
lies.
and the father of
Father of
lies,
lies.
you know, and everything that he says is false and is a lie. He's speaking his native language. He says these are
Because the truth is not in Him.
the
Absolutely.
truth is not in him, and these now we're starting to get a richness in our understanding of what truth is. I think
Right, and
you
it's
always
sort of-
have to look at the mirror image or the opposite scenario.
And it's so hard to grasp because Susanna said it. Jesus is the truth.
Yeah,
And people are like, what?
yeah.
Like they just don't get it.
Well, that sounds
because
poetic.
It's spiritually
That sounds-
discerned,
yeah,
and
spiritually discerned.
He's
yeah.
the way, the truth, and the life.
Right.
And, and sanctify them with by your truth. Your word is truth. He is the word. He's the living word of God, and it's hard to grasp these spiritual truths that point to him as the only way.
Well, the fold back to postmodernism briefly. This generation, the postmodernists, want to exalt only the pragmatic as truth. So they look to science and math. It's all about science and math, science and math, science and math. Now, when I look at science and math, I especially science, I just see abject confusion. It's
We're all
just
practicing
it always.
here.
Yeah, I know.
We're all practicing.
Like I personally have a problem to go to a doctor who's only practicing medicine. I want somebody who's actually got it right.
I'm going to give it my best shot. Here we go.
Yeah.
Give it your best shot.
So
I don't know why it works, but it works for some people. We're going to give it to you too. Let's see.
25
And you
years
tell me
ago-
if you start to bleed out your eyeballs or the long list of side effects that those lovely commercials that tell you how to take care of your little problem could include suicide and death. And, like, what?
Yes, the
I was a little
disclaimer.
depressed and now I'm going to die.
I'm really, not going to love this kind of thing. Absolutely.
25 or 30 years ago, there was a front page article in the New York Times that said the next ice age is imminent, and then we went
Now
through.
we're all melting.
Now we're all melting. So all we ever find out about science is how wrong it was the generation before. It's always the new improved science. So the whole pragmatic science and math scenario doesn't really hold water in reality. But the point that you were drawing out is to say that Jesus is the truth introduces a different narrative, a whole different set of rules, because now truth is not just pragmatic, but truth is a person with whom you can have a relationship with.
Right.
And that's a whole different dynamic.
Oh, yeah,
that's a
absolutely.
whole different dynamic.
And you know what that truth takes away? It takes away the separation.
Yeah.
Yes,
We're not really
yes.
we're not divided from it, and we're not trying to live by it. We're trying to live with it.
Yeah, that's great. That's good.
It's not
Mark.
like, that's your
Right.
rules. Okay,
Yeah,
do that
yeah.
and have a good life. No. He wants to be with us.
That
and
is
in us
so beautiful.
and
That's a
work through
beautiful
us.
analogy. I
And
agree.
that separating. Oh, that's the facts. Go by the facts. No. This is the truth, and it's a way to live your life, and it's a relationship. That's the truth.
Pilate was simply confirming the reality he had conformed himself to, which was a false narrative.
Right. He said you can't. In essence, he said you can't know the truth, and the truth was standing right in front of him.
Yeah. How it doesn't get more stark than that. It's almost as tragic as Judas. But
Yes.
yeah,
To know but not understand.
right.
Yes, to be
Right
with
there.
someone for that whole
And-
time.
and,
still
you know, a lot of
not know
people's-
the truth.
A lot of people say, with Judas, like that, they try to, sympathy for the devil, right? They try to make reasons for why he did it. Well, he sold him out so he would rise up and, take control and, be the
Right.
king that everyone wanted him to be.
And then so that Judas, who was already the treasurer of the money box, it says,
Right.
could be the treasurer of the new kingdom.
Right.
Yeah, the big
Right.
money box.
Yeah.
There's more to him than just that. And yes, he gave back the 30 pieces of it. And yes, he hung himself and burst on. On
Right.
the
But
field.
that was, all.
But that was because I don't think that was because of real repentance. I think that was because it didn't work.
Right.
It didn't work, and now he says, "Oh boy, now they're going to think that I'm part of that group, and I'm going to get killed anyway."
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, in my opinion, I think it was a form of suicide because he
Absolutely.
didn't want to
Fear.
be,
And that's the ultimate
into
denial
that.
of the reality of God's kingdom is that I'm going to check out.
yes,
And
yes,
you're
wrong.
deceived. And
That-
and,
that's the
and the spirit of
ultimate.
suicide is just deception, because it's like I'm
Right.
checking out and I'm going away from God, and you can't go away from God.
No.
And one of the temptations of Christ, Jesus
Throw yourself
Jesus
up.
was tempted to throw himself at the temple
Yes.
to basically
Right.
kill himself,
Yeah.
and everything will be fine, but Satan was trying to kill him.
Ultimately,
You know,
truly.
and obviously, and he moved. You know, it says in one of the gospel narratives, I believe it was John, that Satan had already put it in the heart of Judas to betray.
Yes.
So he was.
Yes.
Well, we never have. We can't say the devil made us do it, because we accept
Still
the
have-
temptation. We have to
we still
accept
have
the
free
lie.
will.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Whether it's free will
We're
for
influenced,
God
but
or
we
free will
believe the lie,
for
Yeah.
rather than the
Satan.
truth. We make a
Exactly.
conscious choice to turn from God in terms of anything but.
Well, we get more information on that narrative, as Suzanna pointed out, that we got the information that Judas was the keeper of the money box,
Right.
and that he was he's sticking his fingers in that. So
Which
what
made
we
him-
have is Judas had already opened the door to Satan.
Yeah,
We don't know
he was
how
vulnerable
long
through his
before.
theft.
Yeah. How, as a matter of fact, Colin Smith does a really good narrative. Being creative, using what do they call that? Creative license, or so,
Sure.
with the Judas story, with called Heaven, and it's done as a play, like a radio drama, but it's called Heaven. How I got Heaven so close, so near, so far, and it's the story of Judas Iscariot. That's okay, honey.
Okay.
Hi. Good morning. Happy Easter.
Happy Resurrection Sunday,
That's
guys.
it. Yes.
The narrative of Jesus, he's using a lot of creative license, but it talks about how he came to the place. It wasn't just that.
Right. It's a
he,
long
he
road.
was predestined to be the son of perdition.
It's a long road to perdition.
And Satan, yeah, it is. It really is. And there are some checkpoints along the way that are equally discernible. And and even after the fact, we know that just as Peter had genuine repentance, Judas had at least the opportunity to make genuine repentance, and he didn't take it.
Right.
He
Right.
he
Yeah.
took
There's
the
two
short
apostles that were tempted and
Right.
turned from Christ in a way, and there was room to come back and to live and to be reinstated. The end of John at three times, do you love me? And
Yeah.
And then go serve my sheep. You're welcome back if you repent. All through the scriptures.
Indeed. So, therefore, we must, and as I would have to share with somebody in the jail last night, who was, on that edge of continually falling and stumbling, encouraging him never to give up, to keep pressing in, and never to embrace the lie that he's just gone too far. He's just way over the.
I'm so sorry, Mark.
I know.
Thank you.
He's way over the
Oh, I
edge
didn't know that
in
you
terms of ever being able to repent or find a place
Sorry, Mark.
in the kingdom again.
Right.
So that's a lie. That's a lie from the pit of hell
That's it.
that shipwrecks many lives in an ugly. So I ended with just how far reaching is the what is truth question. And
Far-reaching, obviously, from our discussion. Holy
it's
moly.
pretty far-reaching in the negative scenario, but it's also it reaches into eternity, into the spirit, into the positive scenario, because knowing Christ is both an immediate place and situation, but it's also a lifelong experience.
Yeah.
Amen.
Like I've often pointed out between Suzanna and I know Suzanna. I think I can claim that with confidence, really. But yet, I'm not glib or overconfident about that, as if to say I know her exhaustively.
No.
That she's always surprising me.
Yeah.
And that's a
Right.
good thing.
Right.
So it's the adventure of pressing on, and we'll see him face to face one day, and then I think this is becoming my life verse. Then we will know, even as we are fully known.
Right.
And,
Yes.
and there is in the essence and the desire of our hearts to be fully known. Obviously, I think in our group, especially, it's especially evident that we use language so intricately trying to explain ourselves and trying to convey an idea and trying to buttress it, with adjectives and adverbs and stories and examples to try to convey an idea. We so desperately want to be known. We want to convey, the essence of ourselves, our narrative, our struggle, our story, our passion, to people around us. And yet there's a veil. There's a veil.
If you only knew what I knew. I could tell you.
There's an inhibition of language.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just can't find the words. There's an inhibition of trying to find our way. So last week I had an interesting scenario. I'm working with this young guy. He's 21. He's definitely young. He's young by any scenario, right? He's just a young guy. I was installing a kitchen, and so the contractor shows up with this young guy and sort of leaves him off to work in the same room as I am in the kitchen. So we started chatting, and I started sharing the gospel with him. And he says to me, I do know about that stuff. I do know about Jesus and everything. As a matter of fact, my brother got baptized last Sunday. And I said, really? Who's your brother? Because I mean, how many churches in the area could
do
be doing
baptisms
on
right.
the same Sunday? And so, and here he is, as a matter of fact. He walks right in.
There we go.
I'm looking for the paper and says and copier.
Okay, hold on. Close the door.
So, in any event, that stimulated a lot of conversation all day long.
Right.
And it was good. It was healthy. It was dynamic conversation. It was not confrontational. There was a lot of mutual agreement going on there. But yet, there was a veil that I just couldn't seem to penetrate. I just couldn't seem to really penetrate this young man's heart in a way that
It touched his brother, apparently.
it touched his brother, but it didn't touch him
Right.
somehow. And so there's just that inhibition of language. We try so hard, to come to that place of agreement.
Right.
And yet it's so fleeting. It's like the holographic image that I talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
You just put your hand
And
right through
that's,
it.
and that's it. We do our best to express it, but the spirit has to touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it indicates to us that there is
It's
a
definitely
transcendent
a
reality
spiritual
that is the real.
Right.
That's the real
We
reality.
can try to convince people.
I
But
know.
only the spirit will move them to
Indeed.
repentance.
Indeed. Yeah.
Well, with that said, let's pray that the Spirit does reach our people
Yeah.
who are listening in.
Indeed.
in truth.
Indeed. I
So,
agree. Hallelujah.
sorry for all the little bit of confusion there at the end, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're in a little office here that gets a lot of traffic by this time on Sunday morning. So just a brief explanation there. But
Right.
it's a festive church, and people are active and doing things, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
But we're not going to be distracted by that aspect of reality either, because there is a place and a time to be still and know that He is God as well. Father, thank you so much for all the dynamics of your kingdom and your truth and your reality, the one that you orchestrated in ages past, before even further back than our imaginations can go. We desire to conform to this truth that you have established, Lord. And I pray that by the power of your Holy Spirit, which is the only way it's going to happen, you would help us in this scenario and more. We praise you and thank you today. And thank you, Jesus, for entering our reality and completing the narrative in such a way that leads us home. Thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Hallelujah.
All right.
Yeah, Jameson is